Yo, what is going on, everyone? It is Wraith here, back with another video. Now, if you guys don't know, Arena just reset, like the points just reset. So basically, everyone's even. So the grind has started to see how many points you can get this season or how quickly you can get to champs. So basically, in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys the best tips on how to win games and how to gain points to get to champions or whatever kind of your point range you want to get to for you. So if you're looking forward to this video, make sure you slap a like button on it, hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into the video. So for the first tip I'm going to give, and this is a big one to help kind of improve as well as get as many points as possible, and it's W key until you can't anymore. Now you might just be like saying, well, what do you mean? So basically what I mean is W key until you start dying more often. So to break that down a little bit more is if you're at 0 points right now, if you're at 500 points, W key every single game until you start dying. So for example, if you play 15 games and you W key every single game, and say you die like 4 or 5 times, whatever, no big deal, but the other 10 games you do really well with like 5, 6, 7, 8 kills, and then you're up 2,000 points, 2,500 points, well then keep going. Like there's no reason for you to stop W keying. But once you get to like that 3,000, 4,000 range and you start dying more often because every time you W key they're a little bit better players, you're not doing as good, you just, out of those next 15 games that you W key, you're dying 8, 9, 10 times, like each game, well then there's no reason to keep W keying, right? So basically W key until you start finding you're dying more because you start coming up against better players, and that might be different points for all of you guys. That might be 1,000 points for one person because they might be a little bit lower skill level, so when they start W keying at 1,000 points, some people might be better than them and they start dying. So stop W keying and play a little bit more passive. Other people might be able to W key all the way up until champs because they're obviously pretty solid players, and no matter who they fight, they're going to do well again. So if you're one of those players, W key up until champs. Like there's no reason not to W key. The reason I say this is, one, you're going to improve because you're going to be taking more fights. You're going to be learning how to fight better. Even if you're a really good player, the more fights you get in, the better it is. You're going to work on your positioning. Hopefully you're not just doing the same motions over and over again, you're actually like working on things during your fights. But yeah, like trust me, just W key. There's no reason literally not to W key until you can't anymore. Again, like I said, that might be different for all of you guys. For some people, hey, that might be right at the start, that might be literally at 200 points. If you're struggling with W keying, don't W key, but if you can, definitely W key because you'll get as many points as possible, as quick as possible, as well as improve quickly. So now going into the second tip, and this is similar to the first one for depending on how many points you are. At lower point range where you feel like you're pretty confident, like you're winning most of your fights, etc., you're doing well, land somewhere like a main POI. So for example, Misty, Lazy, the new POIs, Holly, there's tons of different places you can land, right? Now the reason for this is you can practice your off-spawn fighting. You can practice doing things off-spawn that you normally wouldn't because you're worried about points or whatever the case is. But then once you're at this semi-good point range, like for example, again, it's depending on you. Like if you're at 4,000 points and you dying off spawn every single time, then maybe switch it up. If you're at 2,000 points and you're dying off spawn every single time, switch it up. So what you want to do to switch it up is land somewhere that you think you're going to be landing throughout the season. So for example, that's depending on your play style. So for me, for example, when I play tournaments or when I'm grinding to champions, once I can't W key anymore, I'm landing Craigie. That's just where I like landing. I've been landing there for a while now, but for new seasons, try a different place. Like, so for example, if you normally land Holly and play out the games, like that's where you land in tournaments, that's where you land when you're landing, maybe try Craigie, maybe try an unknown place on the map that's not marked. Like, try a different place at this season, just because it's a start, why not? See if you like it more than your normal spot. If your normal spot got taken out due to these new POIs, then maybe try somewhere else, right? Like, basically, once you can't fight off spawn anymore and win off spawn consistently, find somewhere that you can actually start practicing, start learning about, and start getting ready for when you're in champs, when you want to like get that last 1,000 points or whatever you need to get into champions, or you're going to play for tournaments. That's what I recommend. If you, like I said, if you had a spot last season, I recommend trying a new one just to kind of try it out, see if you like it, see if you like it more. If not, just go back to where you were last season. The next tip, and this is a tip for literally no matter where you are at point range or what you're doing, don't engage in bad fights. Like, honestly, you're just wasting your time if you're engaging in bad fights, whether you're at 100 points or whether you're at 5,000 points or whether you're already at 10,000 points. I don't know how quick you guys grind. But basically, if you're engaging in bad fights and taking on bad fights, there's literally no reason. So, for example, what I mean is off spawn, if you have an AR and no shield and 50 mats, there's no reason for you to push. Like, I understand obviously if you have no other choice, like there's no other loot around you, 100%, like you're gonna have to push unless you want to dip. But basically, in my opinion, there's no reason to take that fight no matter what point range you're at. Even if you're at 500 points, there's still a chance that the person you're fighting is going to be a decent player. And even if they're not a decent player, what happens if they have a shotgun, AR, 50 shield? They're most likely going to win the fight against you, right? So in my opinion, you're not learning anything. You're not getting better by engaging in that fight. You're going to lose points. You're wasting your time. So just don't take bad fights. Same thing with mid game or end game even. If you have 100 builds with no shield, there's no reason for you to push someone, right? Like, unless you're going for that 30-20 kill game and you really need to no matter what, in my opinion, just go look for some places to farm, get some mats up, look for some shield. Like, there's no reason to take a fight. Like I said, you're not improving because you're going to die quickly. You're not going to get points. Like, you're most likely going to die, so you're going to lose points, and you just wasted 15 minutes or 10 minutes. So in my opinion, just don't take bad fights. Obviously, like I said, if you don't really care that much about points, or you don't care if you die, 100% take it. Like, there's no reason not to. But if you want to get to champions, you want to get as many points as possible, you want to improve as quick as possible, don't take bad fights. It's as simple as that. Now, my next tip, and this is a really big one that's kind of specific towards this season that we haven't seen before, and it's learn how to play with the new weapons. So basically, in every other season, like, there'd be a slight weapon change, whether like there'd be a charged shotgun, whether there'd be tac meta, whether there's no pumps, there is pumps, etc. Like, there hasn't been any like crazy changes to weapons, like, generally throughout the years of Fortnite, or throughout the seasons of Fortnite. But now in this season specifically, it's a huge change that they've done. Basically, I'm sure 90% of you guys watching this know by now, but basically they made like the pump shotgun really, really bad off spawn, like a makeshift shotgun. Same with the AR, same with basically every weapon, so I'm sure you guys know this. But basically, it's a completely different off spawn encounter, or a completely different off spawn like fighting style. Basically, you really need to learn and get good with these new shotguns, with these new ARs, because off spawn is going to be just as big as it always has been, right? Like, you can't just start worrying about the end game and mid game if you haven't even survived off spawn, right? So some people have been complaining about like RNG and stuff like that, but in my opinion, this is the best RNG Fortnite's ever been, because originally, when you'd land off spawn at like wherever you want to land, 90% of the time you would, like, there'd be two people landing. Okay, not 90%, but the majority of the time there'd be two people landing at this POI or whatever the case is. One person would get shields, a shotgun, an AR. The other person would get an AR, maybe some minis if they're lucky, or an SMG or something like that. And then it's just complete one-sided fight, right? There is obviously the times where both people would get good things, or the times when both people would get bad things. But like, there's so much RNG dictating if you'd get good loot or bad loot that would really, really matter towards a fight, right? Like, majority of the time, if you have an AR pump and shield and your opponent has an SMG and AR, you're going to win the fight, right? But now in this season, everyone has the same bad weapons. Like, there's no really unbelievable weapons off spawn. You don't have time to craft a purple pump. Everyone has the same stuff, so it's really minimizing RNG. So by learning how to play with these new weapons and how to use them to your benefit, you're going to be way ahead of everyone else, because you're going to be in the best position possible. So now this next tip and the last one is a really, really big one, and it's kind of depending on the season, which a lot of people don't really realize and it's because the pump's back, you need to work on your position more than you ever have before. So basically what I mean about that is, last season you could kind of do whatever you wanted in box fighting or close range fighting, just because there wasn't that often you'd get like one tact or something like that, or one shot charge, things like that. Like, it wasn't that often. Like, normally there'd be like 3 or 4 shots before you die, especially if you're at full shield. Obviously, if you're at like 100 HP, you're gonna get one tack, but stuff like that. But you could play a lot more aggressive. You could kind of play a lot more, what's the word? Like, you could jump in people's boxes and not worry as much. But now that the pump's back, you're going to be getting one pumped a ton, because mid-game and end-game, everyone's going to have a purple or gold pump, and you're going to have to really be aware of that one pump shotgun, because you can't just jump into a box anymore, because if they're on controller or they have really good aim on keyboard, they're literally going to be one-tapping you every single time, right? So you're going to have to worry about your position. You're going to have to learn how to reposition. When you're box fighting, you're always going to have to make sure you're not in a bad spot, so you're in the best position to deal a lot of damage to them, but you're not in a position where they can deal a lot of damage to you. I've talked about this in previous videos where basically positioning is super important, and not many people worry about it as much as they should. Like, for example, if you want to work on your positioning, I really recommend watching Mitro, probably the best player in the world for positioning wise when box fighting and fighting opponents. He's never in a position where he can get 200 pumped, but he can't 200 pump them. Like, he's always in a better spot than his opponent, where he's going to take low damage and they're most likely going to take high damage. But yeah, worrying about your position in this meta is going to be huge, just because you're not going to want to get one pumped. You're not going to want to get 180 damage, because you're basically going to lose the fight then, right? So in my opinion, worrying about kind of positioning right now, I've said position a billion times in the past minute and a half, but worrying about it is going to be super big, and I don't think enough people are realizing how important it is, especially in this season. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you slap a like button on it, hit that subscribe button, use creator code WraithFN in the item shop, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.